Well, hey there, welcome back to Wasting Time in the Woods. There's nothing more American than dragging your reluctant family across the country on a road trip to all the places that you've always wanted to go, and they've always wanted you to go alone. In this episode of What I Did on My Summer Vacation Dad Edition, we're heading north through Wyoming, where we took horseback riding lessons and paddled across a 40-degree lake in the Tetons. Then we'll head further north into Yellowstone to hang out by some amazing waterfalls, wander around a hot tub farm, and have a beer and ice cream at the world's largest matchstick mansion. Grab a snack, pack some bear spray, because we're going on a road trip. Well, we have finally made it to Grand Teton National Park after a very hard day of driving, and it is just absolutely beautiful up here. It's the 5th of June, and the mountains, as you can see, are just covered with snow still. It's warm, it's crisp, and it smells awesome. So we're gonna head on in and stop at a few of the sites and go have some fun. Teton National Park is just south of Yellowstone and is made up of Jackson Hole Valley and the youngest mountain range in the Rockies, the Tetons. And yes, they are named after what they sound and look like. The park was created in 1929 and then expanded to include the Jackson Hole Valley in 1950 after a bunch of dude ranch owners and a national parks patriarch named Horace Albright talked John D. Rockefeller Jr. into secretly buying up all the land around the park and handing it over to the National Park Service. We started at the Craig Thomas Visitor Center, which looks like a cabin that Frank Lloyd Wright might have built for a supervillain. It's a beautiful and modern building with exhibits on the inhabitants, ecosystems, and animals of the Tetons. There was info on early settlers, the geology that created the park, a moose and elk graveyard, and a backcountry office. Those are bear canisters. You put them over your head as you encounter a grizzly. Just a short jog from the visitor center is Mormon Row, where Mormon settlers built homesteads in the late 19th century. It must have been a hardy bunch because the average snowfall here is over 35 feet. Yes, feet. The Mormon settlers were grandfathered into the park and were here until about 1950. Today, all that remain are a handful of the original buildings. This is John Moulton Barn. It's one of the most popular stops for photographers in the park. I assume that these two were repeat visitors since they spent the entire 15 minutes I was there snapping pics of the groundhogs. We drove in from Bryce Canyon that morning and it was getting kind of late in the day, so we decided to head over to Coulter Bay where we were staying. Coulter Bay is the larger of the two developed lakefronts in the Tetons. There's some rustic cabins, and if you're up for a little adventure, there's the tent cabin village. Coulter Bay bills itself as summer camp for the whole family. It has a marina, grocery store, laundry, everything you need to stay busy and fed. We opted for the tent city, and as we checked in, we started to get the impression that this was the Bears Park.
Your site, I say 105.
What do we do if we see the bear?
Take a picture.
You near your vehicle.
Yeah.
You know, just get in your vehicle.
For bears, you want to be around 100 yards away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Away.
So don't like...
She'll try to avoid you. She's got three brand new little cubs.
Oh, she has 3 now? This year we had 2.
No, this is, it's got a number. There's so many numbers I can't remember.
Oh, so it's not Mabel.
No, I don't think it is. It's Blondie's daughter, and this is her first set of cubs.
Everybody up here carries bear spray, or as the bears call it, human hot sauce.
This looks like a prison.
Yep, all the amenities of your cell at home. Toilet wine not included. It's not terrible. I think the girls are actually more excited about this than they were all the hotel rooms we've stayed at so far, so. We like camping, what can I say? The great thing is that we didn't have to bring a ton of camping gear and we get to camp out for 2 nights. But we'll just have to be vigilant for grizzlies and mosquitoes. Definitely for mosquitoes. The cabins are actually really cool. They're made up of 2 wood walls and the rest is canvas. They have flip-down bunks and a potbelly stove so that dads can fail at keeping the fire going no matter how many paper plates we feed it. It also has a picnic table out front, which was great for having a slice of pizza from the restaurant in the village. The Tetons are all about activities. We started with horseback riding lessons right outside the park at Teton Horseback Adventures. After the ride, we had lunch by the creek and headed back to the lake to cool off. The marina rents all sorts of human-powered flotation devices. We rented a canoe, got some instructions, and set off with snacks and beers to see how well the grizzly bears swim. The views from the lake are just incredible. We saw a few boats and canoes, but it felt like we had the whole lakeshore to ourselves. We found a little stretch of shady beach about a mile out and spent the rest of the afternoon exploring, swimming, and poking dead fish. Between the horseback riding and the canoe rental, this was our most expensive day of the entire 2-week trip, but totally worth it. The next day, we headed up to Yellowstone. Why didn't anybody tell me Yellowstone gets crowded? Did you guys know Yellowstone gets crowded? Yellowstone is all about water. There's waterfalls, rivers, and lakes everywhere, but the marquee attractions are the vast fields of boiling cauldrons. Add to that the herds of bisons wandering every stretch of the park and the grizzlies that seem to have no fear of humans here, and you got yourself a real attraction. In fact, so many deaths occur here that there's an entire book devoted to them. Death in Yellowstone has scores of tales of people who were not quite as cautious as they could have been and paid the entrance fee with their lives. Well, that was dramatic. The most reckless tale is probably David Kerwin's. He dove headfirst into Celestine Pool to save a friend's dog in 1981. His friend managed to help him out only to see the flesh from his feet and ankles slide off when they removed his shoes. He didn't make it. Then there was Sarah Holfers, who went out for a midnight swim in Firehole River without a flashlight. On the way back, she jumped over what she thought was a creek adjacent to the river. It was actually the 180-degree cavern spring, which lies right on the banks. She didn't make it either. But it's not just the geysers that'll get you. There's also the snakes, bison, and bears to reckon with. And if that wasn't enough, Yellowstone sits directly on top of one of the world's most active supervolcanoes. The caldera is huge, encompassing nearly half the entire park. The last time it went off, it shot pumice and ash all the way to Louisiana. Louisiana, 1,900 miles away. When that happens again, we'll all wish that we'd gone for a dip in a hot spring while we still had the time. We started our tour through the Killing Fields with Moose Falls, which is a short drive inside the park from the south. We made our first trek out into the geysers at the West Thumb Geyser Basin. It's full of colorful geothermal pools, but the most interesting ones to me were the boiling vents that were actually in Yellowstone Lake. At Mud Volcano, we watched this jerk try to explain to the ranger that he didn't see the 27 boardwalk close signs. That was right about the time that Alex started feeling sick, so we hightailed it to our first hotel, the Lodge at Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. And that's where we encountered this line and found out our room wasn't ready, even though it was 5 p.m. When we finally got to our room, 3 hours after check-in time, we found out why they tried to hold us hostage in the lobby. It's almost 8 p.m. I think they're a bit understaffed. So we made it to the Canyon Lodge. There was a line, 437 people long. Every single person in that line had recently lost a loved one. The front staff and the entire hotel really is run by what I can only imagine are junior high students on summer vacation. And the food offerings are a food court and micro-bake pizza. The grocery store closes at 6 p.m. There's no restaurant, but there is a food court, which we're going to check out in a minute. And it has a review of negative 6.7 on Google. We really should have looked into this a little closer
Since we
when we
paid how
booked,
much?
because it was $450 a night. When we got to the dining hall, it really wasn't nearly as bad as I thought. It had a campy 1950s theme, and the food was actually really good. But you know what really saved it? Back at the room, they had bear soap. This was the most adorable thing that I've ever rubbed on my nether regions. All right, well, it is about 5:30 a.m. and we have had a very long night with a very sick kiddo. I'm gonna let the girls try and get a couple more hours sleep, but I can't sleep anymore, so I'm gonna try and run up and get some sunrise shots. you want to beat the crowds, come at sunrise. When I got back to the village, I popped into the Canyon Visitors Center. It's the nicest one in the park, and it focuses on just how screwed we are if Yellowstone ever blows again. The little red cube is the amount of pumice and ash that Mount St. Helens blew out, and these mega cubes represent the last 3 Yellowstone eruptions. I caught up with the girls at the grocery store where we had a snowball fight in June and loaded up to head to Old Faithful. On our way up to Old Faithful, we took a stroll at Norris Geyser Basin, which is huge. It's the biggest thermal area in the park with over 500 thermal features. Finally, after 1,100 miles, we arrived at our ultimate destination, Old Faithful Inn. And what a grand old hotel it is. It was built in 1903, and it's still the largest log building in the world, with a towering lobby that climbs 77 feet into the air. The original cost to build it was $140,000, so as you stroll in, you can marvel that your home probably cost more to build than this magnificent old flophouse. We gazed at all the rustic charm, watched everyone else watching us, and when that got boring, we went for beers and ice cream. The inn has a veranda where you can watch Old Faithful erupt on its not-so-faithful schedule. It was nearly 15 minutes late when we were there. We grabbed dinner at Bear Pit Lounge, where they give you bear spray with your condiments, and we headed out for one last stroll through the steam factory. The Upper Geyser Basin is right across the parking lot from Old Faithful Inn. It's not quite as big as Norris Geyser Basin, but it's every bit as beautiful. The aptly named Firehole River runs right through the basin, and there's boiling cauldrons and buffalo everywhere you look. The buffalo really like this area, so you might get stuck out here if they decide to graze right next to the boardwalk. You can see Old Faithful right from the start of the trail, so it's a nice place to take it in without the crowds, if it decides to show up. At the Blue Star Spring near the river, Alex noticed something really interesting. She spotted a small pile of not-so-small bones in the bottom of the pool. It turns out that those are the bones of a young bison who fell into the spring in the 80s. It's really as fascinating and beautiful as it is dangerous out here. The colors from the thermophile bacteria combined with the pools that alternate between crystal clear, blue, and muddy make you feel like you're on another planet. As much as we wanted to linger out here a bit longer, we still had 2 more national parks to visit. We had one last visitor center to hit before we left. The Old Faithful Visitor Center is right next to the inn, and it has a great view of Old Faithful and a nice little museum. Did you go in the Young Scientist room?
Yes.
Anything cool?
It talks about elk puberty.
Yeah. A little racy in the Young Scientist room. If you haven't seen the first leg of our trip where we tackled Zion and Bryce, check it out in the links below. And as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you out there. I just came out to get the car because we're checking out. Found this guy, circling the parking lot waiting for my spot.